back to the vlog channel. New intro. What do we think? I think the vibe is good. I like the song. The song is catchy and I think it's good. I like it. I like the vibes. So this is, I guess, less of a vlog and more of just a conversation. It's been, I think, about 3 years since my last video specifically talking about anxiety, my journey with anxiety. Obviously there have been conversations here and there on the podcast and throughout the vlogs, but since my last specific dedicated anxiety video, it's been a little bit and I thought it was a good time to check in. Also timely because Jeremy just had a wild bout of food poisoning this past weekend, and if this is your first time watching any mental health related videos from me, I have a generalized anxiety disorder. I was diagnosed around 17. I have been in and out of therapy since then, so now at 31, that is 14 years. That is 14 years in and out of therapy. I have been on medication since I was 19, and I have a specific phobia called emetophobia, where I essentially have a lot of anxiety around the fear of getting sick, so throwing up, and specifically the anticipatory anxiety behind getting sick. Emetophobia, you may have heard of it. I feel like it's getting, not necessarily that it's getting more popular, I just feel like it's getting more exposure and people realize there's a name to the anxiety that they feel if they have emetophobia. There is a certain validation that comes from having a label on a disorder that has been researched, and also just knowing there are so many other people that are facing the same struggles that you are, that I am. In my last video that I will link in the description, it's pretty intense. It's all about the different kinds of therapies that I've tried, which is EMDR, hypnotherapy, hated, cognitive behavioral therapy, which was my favorite and the most successful for me, but more in depth about my experience with therapy, what my personal panic attacks feel like, what anxiety just overall feels like. What else did I cover? I think my medication journey, which I will touch on again in this video, but I rewatched it just to make sure I was still aligned with everything that I said in that video 3 years ago, and surprise, I'm still anxious and I still have my anxiety disorder, so I still stand by everything that I talked about in that video if you want to go watch something a little more in depth. So yes, timely in the sense that Jeremy was throwing up all of Sunday this past weekend, and I, as an emetophobe, was not coping well and had a rough, listen, I know that his food poisoning was really, really bad, and I feel so deeply for him because again, that is my worst nightmare happening to him. But I, as a highly anxious individual with emetophobia, was also not thriving. And so anyways, we're through it, everyone's good, he's back, he's healthy. I have hangover anxiety from that, and I've kind of just been in a heightened state of anxiety since that day, but we are working through it and it's gonna be fine. But mainly where this all transpired from was RFK Jr., America's new wonderful health secretary, who attempted to link the usage of SSRIs to school shootings and wants to round us all up, take away our medications, and put us on wellness farms. Catch me moving back to Canada if that's the case. For real though, in response to that, I made a post on Instagram and it was met with 99.99% incredibly positive feedback. So here is exactly what I posted. I just wanted to +1 on how SSRIs truly gave me my life back. Without SSRIs/SNRIs, which is what I'm on now, I am a shell of a human, a disintegrated person functioning at 10%. You would not recognize me without my medication, and I am so beyond grateful I've been granted access to a medication that enables me to do things as simple as leave the house, as simple as making it through the day without a string of panic attacks, to travel, to have the energy to wake up every day and not let anxiety be an all-controlling force. Don't get me wrong, I've done years and years of therapy and put the work in, done the CBT to heal the pathways of my anxious brain, but without the clarity that my SNRI provides, healing and finding peace would not be possible. And I received so many incredible messages from people who work in healthcare or people just grateful for the positive exposure culture and my experience, or just overall the transparency towards mental health and the usage of medication to regain control of my life. And then I got a response from this girl, Erica, and I just feel like Erica is such a great representation. You may have an Erica in your life, and I'm so sorry if your name is also Erica and you are not ignorant towards mental health and you are caught in the crossfire. I'm so sorry to the regular Ericas of the world. I apologize. But this Erica told me that I don't need medication to leave my house. They told me that sadness or melancholy feelings is something that I cannot control, and they made me dwell on those feelings, making me feel them more often. They told me to cure these feelings, I have to take my pills. Pills that inhibit body from producing dopamine, serotonin. That must be a special chemical that Erica has that I don't. And other hormones responsible for feelings of happiness or its own joy. They made me dependent on their cure. They made me a returning customer. They profit off me now that they made me depend on their product. Congratulations, you became Big Pharma's source of passive income. I think I pay about $8 a month maybe for my medication. Anyways, you get the point, and I am so sorry if you have an Erica in your life. So I'm making this video to normalize taking an antidepressant, an anti-anxiety, a medication for your ADHD, whatever it is that you need for your own journey, for your mental health. All I want is for everyone to do what is best for them. That is the underlying, overlying, middle-lying message of this entire video. Everyone is just trying their best to be okay. Honestly, reading Erica's message, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm happy for you because you obviously don't have the same chemical imbalance that I struggle with, and I'm happy for you because I would not wish this on my worst enemy. Where I will draw a boundary is people like Erica trying to tell me what I'm doing is right or wrong, making me feel lesser than, making me feel like a big pharma rat, making me feel like a cog in some bigger industry, that I'm just like a small piece of this master evil plan. Girl, I am just trying to get through the day. I am trying to travel and see my family and not have panic attacks. I'm trying to leave the house in peace without hyperventilating. Medication is such a personalized journey that unfortunately takes some trial and error. I was on an SSRI, which stands for, let me make sure I get this exactly right, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. I was on an SSRI for 9 years. Over those 9 years, I ended up increasing my dosage to the max of that medication, switched to a new SSRI for about a year and found that it didn't quite work for me for about maybe 6 to 9 months, and I might be getting these dates wrong. The video from 3 years ago will have this timeline much more accurate since it was much closer to the time of upload of that video, but I took a different approach that was absolute hell. Literally the worst that I have ever felt. I genuinely could not leave the house. I could not socialize. I was paralyzed. When I say I was a husk of a human, I'm genuinely not exaggerating. It was awful, and it was a period obviously where I was waiting to see if the medications that I was trying were going to be a right fit. They were not. Very obviously they were not, and I ended up on an SNRI, which is a serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, and this medication changed my life. It gave me my life back. I think about days like my wedding day and my honeymoon, and literally anything career related and social related, and without this medication, I would not have been able to literally be there on those days. I went through absolute hell and back to go through the period of finding the medication that was right for me. And again, medication is not going to be the answer for everyone. Let me say that again. Medication, especially just medication alone, is not going to be the solution to all of your problems. But putting the work in therapy and talking with certified mental health experts, psychiatrists and psychologists, and finding a solution that works for you does not make you a lesser person. You are not broken, you are not flawed, you are not less intelligent. I think getting help is literally the bravest thing that you can do in these scenarios where you are struggling. I am someone who is going to be anxious for my entire life. I know that it is a continuous journey of ebbs and flows, and I likely, for example with a emetophobia, the first thing that I think of every single day when I wake up is, do I feel sick? And I know that that's not normal. I have found coping mechanisms and I have built my anxiety toolbox through therapy and becoming more emotionally resilient. There is nothing more rewarding than finding balance in your life and being able to experience joy or emotions or a less stressful or anxious perspective on any of the elements that affect our day-to-day lives. Taking care of your mental health, whether that be through therapy or medication or a form of self-care that you found works for you. Like, listen, if you tell me that sunning your asshole for 10 minutes a day makes your depression go away, bitch, get out there and sun your asshole. I will be cheering you on because I want what is best for you and I want you to do whatever works for you, whatever that may be. I just so desperately want to normalize the perspective of medication being used as a tool and not a crutch, which is how I feel like it can sometimes be perceived with the wrong rhetoric. It can just simply be a proactive step towards feeling better and bettering your mental health. I think on a secondary layer as well too, when my medication and chemical balance was figured out, I was able to sleep better, I was able to focus, and I had energy, and all the other puzzle pieces of my life fell back into place, and I have never been so grateful to feel like me again. There are also so many personalized approaches you can take. Medication could also simply just mean taking a vitamin or a supplement. There's a chance that you might just be deficient in something and it's throwing off the whole balance of your body. Regardless though, if this is something that you have been thinking about, I encourage you to connect with a mental health professional. A psychiatrist is the doctor specifically who can work with you to find the right personalized approach if you are interested in trying a medication. The side effects can obviously vary. I have been incredibly lucky, and I would say I had minor side effects while transitioning off of an SSRI, but other than that, my experience with side effects has been overwhelmingly positive in the sense that I've essentially had none, and I know that I am so lucky for that. Okay, so that's my partial rant and a little bit on medication and where I stand on all of that. And on a more personal level, I wanted to normalize anxiety overall and just give you a behind the scenes, pull back the curtain reality of some of the highlights of my life and how anxiety fit into that. Although I aim to be as transparent as possible about my mental health, anxiety is an ever-flowing current throughout my life. So there is likely some kind of anxiety related incident related to almost every day of my life at some point, but I wanted to highlight a few specifically. Okay, so this is the last day of our honeymoon in Capri. Incredible day. My anxiety throughout majority of this trip was really, really great. The next day, we took a boat from Capri back to Rome, and this boat was like a bus on water. It was silent. We were packed into these little tiny seats like sardines, and the rocking of this boat was unmatched. I'm not someone who gets motion sick on the water, in the air. Like, I'm not someone who experiences that, but because that is super common, I'm looking around at all of these people on this boat and I'm like, oh my God, everyone looks ill. If someone throws up, I started spiraling. Jeremy was super aware of it, and I literally had to take myself out of this main area to the back of the boat where there was fresh air, because again, we were just like inside this bus on water. I swear to God, that's like the most accurate way to describe it. And I sat on the ground of this boat so that I could have fresh air, and I feel like having the sensations of so much wind like blowing in my face and having access to fresh air, and it also being like pretty loud, it was overwhelming enough for my other senses where I was able to ground myself. But I have a video of the water that I took once I was out there and settled again, but I sat on the ground of this back of the boat, like back area where people were not really supposed to sit, but like no one kicked me out, and I was doing so much better outside. There was a few other people that I feel like had the same idea who were like sitting on random pieces of the boat that like kind of stuck out enough, or like stairs, but I sat on the literal ground of this boat for 45 minutes because of the panic attack that put me there. And that was essentially the conclusion to our honeymoon, and it's a lighthearted memory to look back on now, but like that was the reality of that day, and I felt the effects of it throughout the rest of the day. I was lucky enough to be invited to the Emmys one year, and this dress was so stunning. She was gorgeous, but she was tight. The back was a corset and I had been cinched into this dress so goddamn tight that once we left the Emmys and went for dinner later in the evening, I felt so constricted, and I hold a lot of anxiety in my throat, I think because of just like gag reflex and again tied to the emetophobia. And at the beginning of this dinner, I started having a panic attack, and we were with a handful of people that I didn't really know that well. So I excused myself outside, I called myself an Uber, and it's called an Irish exit when you leave without telling anyone. But my priority, honestly, was just getting home and feeling safe again after having this panic attack, and also needing this dress off immediately. I think what's also great about being very accepting of the presence of anxiety in my life and knowing that we just gonna be like this forever is that I look at these photos of the honeymoon and the Emmys and I don't remember the bad parts of it. Obviously I can recall the not as fun elements where I was having panic attacks, but it's not the core memory that's tied to the specific memory, if that makes sense. This was the second season of Craftopia and these set days were so incredibly long. I was drinking so much caffeine. I'm a little caffeine intolerant. I think we were around like hour 17 or so of this day, and I had been in like these big ass high heel boots and I had 2 pounds of hair clipped into my head, and I had just been drinking so much caffeine, and I think exhaustion just set in and I started feeling nauseous. I had to walk myself. That's not true. Actually, I finished the last few lines that I had to deliver, but had to walk myself off set and back to like the hair and makeup area where I was able to go like have a panic attack in peace, essentially. But in the past, I've always been so worried about my anxiety interfering with huge opportunities that I have worked really hard for and never want to pass me by. And so like my worst nightmare would be like halfway through a crazy shoot day having to be like, hey, I'm having a panic attack, I'm so sorry, I can't shoot anymore. And so luckily we were at the end of the day, and I think that I was just so tired that my brain literally just like fell apart and couldn't hold it together anymore. But it's something that I definitely am very aware of in high stress situations, especially related to work. This photo I wanted to highlight because I just don't want anyone to look at my body here and be like, oh my god, body goals, fitness goals, like so skinny, oh my god. This was during the period where I was getting my my medication imbalances figured out. I had just done that genetic testing and I was in the midst of changing medication. This is the period of my life where I could not leave the house. Could I take a bikini photo in the living room? Yes, obviously, of course. I think this also might have been during COVID, so I wasn't really, you know, going that many places in general, but I was so thin here and I had lost so much weight because I just could not eat. I am someone who loves food so much, and like I cannot relate at all until this period of my life when people would just say, I'm so stressed, I'm just not hungry. I always used to be that person being like, I just don't understand, I just love food so much, it's so good. This was the first time in my life where I could barely eat anything. And I look back at this photo and I'm like, damn, it's so, like, I just feel so sad for her because this was such a rough period of mental health, the worst that I hope things will ever be. But I can tell that my weight is a direct reflection of my level of functioning here. Okay, so these two photos are from a couples trip that Jeremy and I did with Zach and Maggie a few years ago. And I remember prior to this dinner, on the walk to the restaurant from our Airbnb, for whatever reason, I'm not even sure what the trigger was here. I think I just started feeling a little bit nauseous. And again, the emetophobia, the anticipatory anxiety behind, am I sick? Am I going to feel sick? Is this the time that I actually am sick? And I just started absolutely spiraling. And so I'm in this country where I don't speak the native language, and I have people around me that are considered safe people and will support me no matter what. And so that was incredibly important. But I remember the walk to this restaurant just being like, should I tell everyone I'm having a panic attack or should I just keep walking? Will it subside? And so eventually, obviously it did. We were able to sit down and I was able to calm myself and settle. But the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe quarter of this meal were totally overshadowed by my inability to regain control of just all of my senses and ground myself back into reality. And then eventually I was fine, obviously, because here I am drinking a margarita. Coachella. Okay, so Something odd or like peculiar, I guess, about my anxiety is that I'm very mentally, not physically, but mentally dependent on having water with me. So I think, again, tied to the emetophobia, I've marked in my mind water as a tool and a safety item where it's like if I start feeling nauseous, I have water and water will possibly help fix this. And so I've really placed having access to water on a pedestal. When I worked with a therapist, one of the homework tasks that I was assigned was to walk around the block without water in a bag or in my pocket, which I know to some people might sound like the craziest, most basic activity in the entire world, but it's something that is I'm so aware of, incredibly aware of, and my anxiety has marked it as a very specific and important need for safety. And with Coachella and venues where they do bag check, you majority of the time are not allowed to bring outside fluids into the space or the venue. And I remember having the most intense panic attack getting through the doors of Coachella. And when I say doors, I mean the like 1.5 mile long walk across dusty grass, which obviously just perpetuates my like need for water and my desperation to have water again. It's such a peculiar thing that I've marked in my brain as a fundamental need, but even just having it and not drinking it is still safe in my brain. So essentially every day I would walk into the festival and immediately buy a water bottle, and that was just how the way my camera just overheated because I was yapping too much. When I started thinking about what I wanted to say in this video, which I really didn't spend, I was like, let me just turn the camera on because I feel like this is my real everyday life, and so there's not necessarily a script that I want to go off of. But yeah, camera was like, hey bitch, you should take a break. You're blabbing too much. And so now we're back. I just had one last picture though. These are both shots from a vacation that Jeremy and I took together. I think maybe the first year of Jeremy and I's relationship in Fiji. And what I remember about the boat ride to Fiji, I'm seeing a pattern now, except for on this boat ride, we were in the pitch black in the middle of the ocean going from the Fiji airport over to the little island that our hotel was at. And as you know now, I don't get motion sick, but this boat in the pitch black was going over such violently large waves that I was like, oh, this is obviously the time that I'm going to get motion sick because how could I not? These waves are insane. Spoiler alert, I didn't get motion sick. I ended up being totally fine, but I did have a panic attack on that boat ride. And you know what? That one, looking back, pitch black, giant ass waves. We're in like a dinghy boat, not like, it wasn't very substantial because it was just us and the hotel ship crew mate person who was manning the dinghy. That one, looking back, I'm like, yeah, that one for sure checks out. There was for sure some rational fear there. So that's a look into the reality of some of the photos that I've shared over the years that look like highlights, that look like picture perfect days, because how else would you know otherwise? And I think that's probably a bigger metaphor for just no matter how perfect someone's life looks on the outside, you just have no idea what everyone is faced with and the challenges that may be invisible or that you just don't know about. And so to show grace and to be compassionate and show empathy to the people that you cross paths with. If medication improves your quality of life and it feels right for you, I personally view that as a part of your self-care routine that can be as valuable, if not more, to the other necessities in your life. At 31, I think I've finally found the combination of fitness and diet, sleep, and just like overall downtime, stress or workload that I'm capable of taking on, medication and supplements, water intake, getting sun and natural light into my eyeballs. I have found what has worked for me. It has not been a perfect or smooth ride to get here, but I am incredibly proud of myself. Overall, just living such a fulfilled life that I didn't think to be possible 4 years ago when I was at my lowest of low. And I want that for everyone, whether or not you are an Erica in my DMs being an ignorant ass bitch. I could blab and yap about this for hours and hours and hours. And so before my camera overheats, I'm going to wrap it up here. But I just wanted to reiterate again that medication for your mental health can be an incredible tool and resource to feeling better and improving the quality of your life. And it does not make you weak, it does not make you lesser than. And I hope that my personal testament to this journey can help normalize this even a fraction of a percent. Because I think that it can just be a positive +1, because I think the more people that are talking about it, the better. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, let me know and I will do my best to get to all of them in the comments. I'm headed to Chicago this weekend, so when you're watching this, I will likely be freezing my ass off in Chicago. But I'm excited to be back in Chicago and I will see you soon. Bye guys.